Okay, meeting ID. It is. Sorry, its meeting ID is 5626262 199. I didn't know how to answer it. Okay. Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's go ahead and get started. Andy, we all ready on your end?
All ready.
All right, cool, awesome. Everyone, thank you so much for coming to the very first KCHC Zoom community conversation. We decided to switch to monthly Zoom meetings on the monthly basis to make it a little bit more accessible for people. Typically, we're Zooming out of different locations, and this is our opportunity to be able to have awesome speakers like Andy, who are based out of California, speak with us and do it a little more at our desks and not have to travel to different counties. We'll also be doing quarterly switches to other different counties, but we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So some different guidelines. We'll have opportunities for questions at the end, where we'll also be talking about how we can integrate programs such as SINGFIT into what we're doing to make Kentucky a healthier state. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, we're going to keep everyone and their microphones muted for now. And once Andy's all finished up, then we'll unmute everyone. But for now, there's options to raise your hand. And if you kind of roll your mouse over the screen itself, there's a chat option. And if you have any questions or experiencing any technical difficulties in the meantime, please feel free to utilize that chat option. And yeah, thank you so much for Andy for coming out. Andy is the co-founder and chief of therapeutics and music at SINGFIT, and he'll be presenting an overview of SINGFIT and how healthcare providers and individuals can elevate cognitive care of their clients and loved ones through music and technology. And at the end of this presentation, we'll be having a facilitated conversation on how we can work to utilize this and make Kentucky a little bit healthier. So Andy, feel free to go ahead and start.
Super. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, be a part of your first presentation. It's exciting. So I have been a music therapist for almost 20 years, like 16, 17 years, and started in TBI rehab, traumatic brain injury rehab, went into adult and geriatric psych, like locked units, did a little bit of children's psych. And then for the past 8 or 9 years before I co-founded SINGFIT, I was in a private practice with folks with neurological disorders. So the entire career was really about trying to figure out the brain on music and how to utilize different types of processes to attain and quantify clinical goals, right? And so that's really what we've been working on. And then I'll get into a little later with SINGFIT is a way to really scale some of those music therapy activities with non-music therapists, all right? But let's get into it a little bit. We're gonna go over a little bit of the science around, the current science around singing and active music making. As well as maybe just touch on the history of music therapy. We're going to get into how to scale different ways using technology and music as medicine. We're going to look at what the marketplace looks like a little bit for some different options, even having some suggestions on what you can do for non-paid caregivers, paid caregivers, different kinds of group processes. So make some actual real world suggestions and then have a big finale at the end, or, as much as we can on the web. And so the first thing that I want to touch on is that over the past 10 years, our neurologist friends have realized how deep the music goes in the brain. And what they have done is that through the access of fMRIs, which is real-time pictures of the brain, right? they are now able to track the electroactivity that's happening while you sing, right? Prior to this, singing was a very, very challenging thing to be able to study on any real level. But what they have found is that when you sing, you coordinate and activate language centers, timing centers, motor centers, planning centers, subcortical, topical, right? Short term, long term. Your entire brain is lighting up like the Vegas Strip when you sing. So if you do this as an exercise, as a cognitive exercise on a regular basis, what you are actually doing is now they are proved that you are building your neural network. So one of the beautiful things that has been proven by this guy, Gottfried Schlag from Harvard, is that when someone had a stroke and they become nonverbal, and you use different kinds of rhythmic and vocal singing protocols, you can actually reroute the damaged portions of the brain to other parts of the brain and actually bring speech back, right? And so this is out of the hippie closet, so to speak. This is very hard science to the point of mapping the electroactivity in that brain where they did the study on, and actually seeing the rerouting occurring and actually measuring the increase of mass in the brain. So the brain, just like you build a muscle when you go to the gym on a daily basis, the brain actually built in mass while doing these protocols and gaining speech for someone that was nonverbal. So this is all mapped out in extremely eloquent ways, and it's exciting. So using singing as an exercise proved the whole brain workout for folks. This is, we're going for a whole brain workout all the time. Everyone knows the simple use it or lose it concept, right? That's why we go on walks. That's why we do artwork. That's why we socialize. That's why we do all these different things for people to stay healthy. This is kind of the superfood of that, because it integrates many, 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 many aspects, of our world and our entire brains. The other thing that the neurologists have proven is the neurochemical release. So it's not just when you sing that you feel happier because of the endorphins, right, that everybody knows, but they've actually proven an increase in dopamine, serotonin, right? These are the things that pharma is going after in your antidepressant and anti-anxiety drugs. A regulation of cortisol, right? The cortisol is our stress hormone. So if someone is having sundowners at 4:30 in the afternoon and you sing, it's actually been shown that you're regulating your cortisol to mitigate and reduce the behaviors in the afternoon if someone's having a predictable sundowners. So the cortisol regulation. Singing also releases oxytocin. This is the bonding love drug, natural neurochemical between mother and child, in utero and after. The only ways to release oxytocin is to have a baby, pet an animal, eat chocolate, make love, and sing. So this connections between people can really increase rapport between caregivers and family. If you're singing together, it's literally built into the neurochemistry of singing to bond. There's beautiful research around people, that are challenged with COPD and respiratory issues in terms of sustaining, their condition, or even repairing. New research is showing that it can even repair tissues, right? The vibrations and the breath regulation that it brings to the table can really actually help the tissue regenerate a bit. So it's really new research, but really exciting. In terms of immunity fortitude, singing, I know this sounds like it's a panacea, like it's a cure-all. It is not, but it definitely has its benefits in terms of doing this on a regular basis. In terms of immunity, it actually increases our immunoglobulin A, which is a hormone in our blood that indicates how strong our immune system is. It goes up over 200% when you sing on a regular basis, each time you sing. right? And so it can consistently start to actually help reduce the amount of colds you get. So I am happy to send people research and summaries. This is the research around 150 to 200% of the immunoglobulin A to really help. And in a study that they did at George Washington University that now has been funded by the NIH for the next 5 years, they have found that this study has reduced doctor's visits for seniors, that it has reduced med requests for seniors, a whole bevy of positive, positive things that have come out of this study. So, a very, I'm happy to get in a little deeper.
Yeah, that's not him. It looks like he's covered his mouth. Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you cut out.
Okay. Where did I cut out?
Did you happen to maybe cover your microphone or anything on your computer?
Is that better?
Yeah, better.
I did. Sorry. Where did I cut out?
Right at the beginning of this slide.
Okay. So I was just saying that later we can get into a little bit deeper into the research. And I'm happy to send you, as I said, some research summaries or as much as you would like to see in terms of the hard science. And so very quickly, just music therapy in general. The history of this was really coming out of World War I, where what the VA found is that after soldiers came back from the war and they included live music in the rehabs, right, and in the VA hospitals, that people were more engaged into their own therapy, that morale was higher between staff as well as the patients, right, and that all these positives, socialization was climbing, and all these different positives happened. So what they started to do was actually study this at the VA. And then not long after, they started to do more formal studies in colleges, and then universities started to have programming and in the deeper research labs, all the way up to where we get to the 2000s, which this is Gottfried Schlag from Harvard, who really utilized technology and fMRIs and really proved how to reroute functionality through singing and rhythmic protocols in the brain. As of recent, with the unfortunate shooting of Gabriella Giffords, as well as a variety of other scenarios, music therapy has kind of taken become a bit of a media darling. And let's take a look at how that's occurred.
Once I look at what Congresswoman Gabriella Giffords is going through every day as she recovers from being shot in the head last month in Arizona. 360 MD Sanjay Gupta was granted extraordinary access to the very facility in Houston, Texas, where Giffords is undergoing rehab. Playing the patient, he shows us the kind of therapy that she goes through every day. Here's Sanjay. For about an hour most days, Congresswoman Giffords does this. So you're going to sing it and mouth it. We can do that. I don't know what that means.
That's not good.
Once I look at what Congresswoman Gabriella Giffords is going through every day as she so you're going to sing it, and if I mouth it, maybe we can do that, and you can tell me what that means. Twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
Good.
Sanjay, it's really cool to see that rehabilitation up close. When people talk about rewiring in and I learned a lot from this whole process as well. Rewiring the brain basically means that you're trying to use what are redundant pathways in the brain. The brain has lots of different pathways to do the same activity. You want to use some of those new pathways.
And so it is these new pathways that we are going after constantly, whether that be for rehabbing speech, whether that be for somebody on the autistic spectrum, right? Or whether that be for somebody who has had a stroke, right? And they've lost physiological process. It's these new pathways and that the connections and the new pathways that can start to help reroute the functionality through musical process. And to understand that a little better, one needs to understand the difference between an active music making process and a passive music making process. The active music making, especially with singing, is what we've proven now that interconnects the whole brain, that gets the whole brain workout. This is an effective way we have found to scale in terms of training caregivers and facilitators and non-music therapists, right, who don't have the skill set or maybe the understanding of the research behind them to really create clinical results. This is the whole brain working when you actively are singing, versus a listening process where we all medicate to music, right, to listening. And it can be a very powerful, powerful thing, except that it's a very nuanced thing to actually attain clinical goals using a listening process, right? Everybody's preferences are different. A lot of people are, especially people with neurological disorders, are not okay with their ears being covered. And the facilitation of that music, you need very specifically the preferences, because when you're listening, only a small part of the brain is lighting up. If you have an emotional connection to the song, the limbic system, or a little bit more of the brain, is lighting up. But still, you are not getting that whole brain workout that you do when you actively make and create the music. So how to really attain clinical goals is very challenging utilizing a listening process and quantifiable clinical goals. Although it definitely can be done and can be powerful if it's done well. This is what I was mentioning before, that we had all these, this great study that now has turned into 5 years of funding for at the NIH. And what they found for music with seniors is that they had fewer doctor's visits, lower depression, right, more engaged in their world, even fewer med requests, right? And we have had, we actually had a company recently send us a video of, we didn't even know that they were doing it. And when their most challenging, it was an adult day community in California. And in their most challenging group, it was a memory care group, and that had a lot of negative behavioral expressions. They were able to reduce the PRN medications, meaning the anxiety meds that they, as they said, gave out like candy, right, in the afternoons. They were able to reduce those meds over 40% within that group. And I actually had them send me the med logs because I didn't actually believe them, but it was significant. It was significant. So all this very powerful talk around singing, but the thing is that America never really got the memo, right? That in Europe, this is just an example of that in Europe, Alzheimer's Scotland, that's Scotland smaller than California, there are over 30 singing groups for seniors to go and stay healthy. Whereas, I don't know, in LA, right, in one of the biggest cities. So Europe and the rest of the world are believers and utilize singing and vocalization as a therapeutic tool, though sometimes they don't quantify it the way that we would in the Western world in terms of Western medicine and quantification. Nonetheless, it's a challenge to actually get it out in America the same way that they do in Europe. There was a recent study and said that music can delay, and this was a study done in Europe. Music can delay the onset of dementia and improve brain function and information recall, right? And they actually looked at it in terms of money. And they actually were able to quantify what that meant over a number of years. And they had all this beautiful research around music process, saying all these great things. And then the last part of their study was, they found that only 5% of the care homes in the UK were actually using music effectively, right? So there's this deep belief, not just intrinsically in our bodies, but also now in hard science, that actually shows real efficacy in utilizing singing and active music making. Yet, how do you get it out there? How do you get people to utilize it on a daily basis or 3 or 4 times a week as a cognitive exercise to actually see some real results and positive results? I will show you, this is the first kind of little clip I'll show you of SINGFIT. And this is the company that we created. And what you're going to hear is a technology that actually cues the words. So we created a word cueing system, similar to speech therapy or music therapists doing it live. But it's a word cueing system that speaks the words before people need to sing in the music. This is what you're going to see here is you're going to hear the technology, and you're going to see Terry, who is, you know, a $15 an hour caregiver working with Olivia to get her singing. Now, Olivia hasn't sung in over 10 years, although she used to be a singer. Okay, so let's see what happens on her first session.
And soon I'll hear old winter song. But I miss you most of all. My darling. When autumn leaves start to fall.
A little bit of engagement, and here's her second session a few days later.
It's awfully hard to tell somebody what I experienced.
Yes.
Because it was like a miracle.
And so the miracle that you're saying you experienced was what?
My voice returned.
Sing
with me, sing.
All right. So what you don't know is that Olivia actually is wheelchair bound, and she insisted on standing, right? And think about that. What does that mean towards the rapport with her caregiver? What does that mean in terms of her energy levels? What does that mean in terms of her connection with her husband, who said that she would nap all the time in the afternoons before SINGFIT, and often she doesn't need a nap, right? So there's many, what does that mean neurologically and respiratory for her in terms of that exercise? So I think because of time, I'm going to start skipping a couple slides, right? Because it's getting close to 11:30. And maybe like 5 more minutes.
Yeah, let's do 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. And so we know the stats of what's happening with caregivers. There's only 6,000 music therapists. Actually, that number in the last year went to 7,000 this year, music therapists in the country. But that means how many are working in senior care, right? And how many of them are good? So you have a very finite number of music therapists that are really effectively working to provide for senior care. There are a variety of programs. There's a REMO, which is a drum program. You can actually get trained on how to facilitate drum circles. These are not music therapists, but it does train people how to utilize drumming and get people organized with drumming, which can be very effective. Yamaha has a bunch of keyboards and simplified keyboards and technology around learning to play. I'm not a huge fan personally. There are some challenges in terms of, you know, the person really needing a ton of support and being rewarded and being successful. And it can be challenging, especially if there's neurological disorders, but there is some technology around that. There's our program, which you just saw with Olivia, and I'll show you our group process in a second. And then there's a ton of new, huge companies, including Google and Apple, and getting into using listening and passive music as a way to scale music as medicine. But what it really ends up being is that there's elements of relaxation if it's used well as sports optimization are really the main functions of these. There's different kinds of resources, obviously. If you're tech savvy and you've worked with people with dementia, you've probably used YouTube to pull up Pavarotti concert or a specific song from someone's past. It is hugely important when you're working with somebody with any kind of neurological disorders is to not just play any music. If you're thinking about utilizing music as a therapeutic tool, it is extremely important to get their musical preferences. The musical preferences mean that typically the sticky years for somebody are between 13 and 25. So you have to go back to that era of when those songs were hits, right? So, or talk to the families. What are their musical preferences? Talk to the client or the participant. What are their musical preferences? Do some research around what is going to really engage them emotionally in that music. And YouTube is a great resource for that. Spotify and Apple are also, it just depends on the functionality and what we're really looking for. There's you know, different kinds of lessons from singing to dancing on YouTube and online that are all free, right? And so simple movements, even senior movements, there's a lot of beautiful things. And the reason why I keep talking about movement like dancing is that movement to music is similar to singing to music because it's all about motor coordination in time. Motor coordination in time so that music gives one a grid and a structure to work within to help everything from gait to planning how you speak at what point or how you sing at what point in time. So it's really can be powerful for in terms of motor planning. Let me show you a quick video on what our group process looks like. This is me with a group of mixed functionality seniors. You'll see our technology, and I'll explain to you what's happening right after the session. I'm reading from our trivia booklets, as you'll see. And one of the people one of the most famous trumpet players from New Orleans grew up there, Satchmo, exactly. So our first song today will be a really famous Satchmo song, and it's called When the Saints. You got it. Here we go. All you need to do is listen to the words and sing along with me, please. Please sing out and have fun. I like it. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. And when the sun refused to shine. When the sun refused to shine. These Awesome. And then, there we go. And so what we provide in our group process, right, is the technology. That's a word queuing system. That's the lyrics on the first track that speak the words, a guide singer on the second track, and the music on the third track. And then we write 12 playlists every quarter with trivia, themed playlists, right? And so those playlists have are like a journey theme or a tour of Europe or tasty treats. And we create a playlist of 8 songs that support that. And then we write a transition sentence that is the storyline, 4 levels of trivia on every song so the facilitator can adapt to the functionality of folks in the room, as well as we bake in movements and self-disclosure questions once the song is done. So this is a very complete program that people use on a daily basis, from AL to skilled to memory care to adult day. We're in over 400 communities across the US, and we train online. Just to be clear, this is our group process. And what you saw Olivia singing with Terry, the one-on-one, we're in pilot stage on that right now. And we're about 3 or 4 months away. We're doing pilots with 3 companies in our beta and really sorting out our training and finalizing our business model and all that kind of thing. So we're excited to be launching that probably, towards the winter time for a one-to-one. Lots of partners, cool awards. I'm gonna skip over that. And, the singing, the dancing, the listening, it's all very positive, but I would suggest to really be aware of what your musical preferences are and make sure that you're not holding your preferences over your client's preferences. It's very important that music can empower the most fragile patient. And if they are able to pick their music and go through their process, and you facilitate that and support that and really individualize that for them, you are going to see really beautiful results, with your client, and a deep increase in rapport, and really make sure that it is client-led and that they are the ones in control of their music and how they want it and when they want it, kind of thing. I could show a video of our, I'm gonna skip this video because of time, because that was what I was telling you about before in terms of the, the reduction of medications, the over 40% reduction of meds at the adult day for that, really challenging group they had. But yeah, just because of time, I thought we just skip. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anything, but I want to thank everybody for listening. Hopefully there wasn't too much technology issues as well.
Oh, I think technology-wise it went pretty well. And we'll release a survey at the end of this to talk to allow people to, offering technology suggestions that they might have. Sam, how do you think we should moderate those questions?
I guess if individuals have a question, maybe you can type in the chat, you have a question, so we can make sure you're not muted.
Yes, if you have a question, we would love Andy can answer, or really a conversation, we would love to just unmute you. So just in the chat, feel free, there's a chat option that we talked about earlier. And if you're on your computer, you can go to the chat, and then that'll provide the opportunity for you to let us know if you have any questions.
I'm sorry.
I just might ask, Andy, if we have folks out there that are maybe doing one-on-one with family members, what would you suggest to them?
Well, you can always, we do have an app online. It is not a fully, I'm trying to find my chat is really what I'm trying to do here.
It's at the bottom. So if you hover over the Zoom page, you hover at the bottom, you should see a toolbar that pops up.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So uh, the suggestions that I have with family members is that one, we have an app for a couple dollars a month, or you can even use, there's a free version as well on Apple. And you can try to get people singing a bit. The one thing you want to definitely keep in mind is never force singing and never force doing music. You want to keep the associations very positive. And like I said, if someone, if someone is, that they like the Beatles, and you're playing a Beatles song and they're not singing, right? It's not about, oh, you like this song. You always sing the song. Come on, sing louder, right? All of those kinds of ideas is basically just transferring your own baggage onto them, right? And so the idea is if they're not singing that Beatles song, you want to say, oh, maybe we should listen to something else. Would you like to? Right? And really be conscious of your own kind of baggage coming to the table and really trying to facilitate a positive musical experience. So one, you could use our app to get people singing. Two, you could put together playlists of preferred music at home. Three, you could do simple movements. If they're fall risk, you don't want to be standing up and dancing. But if they're not a fall risk, that is a beautiful way to increase rapport between each other, get exercise, and help with motor planning. If they are a fall risk, do it seated, right? Hold hands and move, right? And sway. But all of the movement stuff, you really want to try to organize it in time with the music, right? If the music is, I found my thrill, right? And music is in time, and you're swaying out of time, it can actually confuse the participant, right? So you want to do, I found my thrill. And really, if you're not sure where the tempo is, stop, listen, and then move in time with them from there. So listening and singing and moving are beautiful things to do for caregivers.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
very helpful.
I think we have a question in the I'm not sure if you see that, Andy.
Yeah. Do you feel like people get similar results? Is that what we're looking at? Do you feel like people get similar results utilizing SINGFIT singing component without the dancing component, or do you need to be to both be used? I used the app last year and it's great. Thank you. So the real objective for both our group process and our one-to-one process that is going to be launched in a couple months is simply to get people singing. If you personally or someone with cognitive issues that you're working with sings 3 times 7 days a week, right? Everybody wins. If you're actually very good or 6 songs, if you can. If someone's tired, never push. But if you can get going, 5 days a week at 30 minutes a day singing, you're going to really be exercising that whole brain workout. The movements are a beautiful thing that help increase engagement, that help increase organization, that help increase rapport. But to me, in this state, the movement process is a supportive process, because to actually attain clinical goals in terms of movement, it's a complex thing. And so, but to get somebody singing along with you is not that complex, and you can actually attain very powerful clinical goals just by doing the act of singing 3 to 5 times a week, right? As opposed to trying to attain clinical goals physiologically, that's a pretty complex process and how to quantify that. So to me, the movements are a supportive process. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
Andy, for those that may be interested more about it, you want to just talk about your website a little bit and how they could maneuver that and get more information?
Sure. Well, there's a ton of information, everything from social media to research to a bunch of videos that are on the website. And you can also email me at andy@singfit.com if anybody's interested in some deeper research. I have a research summary, even you know, tons and tons of in-brain research that goes from very, very complex to articles about it to white papers on SINGFIT specifically. All of the white papers are based around our group process, SINGFIT Prime, and the SINGFIT, you know, based around senior care communities, except for the one, the reduction of medications that, you know, was what I was talking about at the adult day. But all of our white papers are really based around memory care and assisted living communities utilizing SINGFIT. And so I'm happy to send you as little or as much. You can say, send it all, or you can say, I'd love to see a summary. You know, I'm happy to send that out to anybody.
Appreciate you being our first Zoom presenter, and I'm sure that we record this. I'm sure that we'll be having a lot of people see it that could not be here today for various reasons. The next thing we want to do is just really talk a little bit about the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities. As you know, we have decided to change our format just a little bit. We will be doing Zooming the majority of the time, but we're still going to have the quarterly meetings so that we can have some face-to-face interaction. And we're going to enlarge those quarterly meetings so that they will be meeting at a different location each time. And of course, we will be getting all that information to you. Our meetings are going to be from 12:30 to 3:30. That's Eastern Standard Time, of course. And we will start with a nice healthy lunch. And then we will be, during our lunch, whoever wants to be the one who sponsors that lunch will be given the opportunity to talk to our members a little bit about what they do. Then we're going to be having very specific topics according to what the pertinent need is. Our first one of those is going to be September 4th. It will be at North Central District Health Department. The address there is 1020 Henry Clay Street in Shelbyville. Of course, you will be getting information by way of MailChimp and emails. And we're going to be talking about our healthcare changes. And our speakers for that are going to be Emily Bogard from Kentucky Voices for Health, and Dustin, I'm not sure I'm saying his last name right. It's Pugel. And he's the policy analyst for Kentucky Center for Economic Policy. And then we also will have a representative from KIPTA. So we're hoping by then that we have some really good information for our folks in regards to what's going on in our healthcare industry. So I guess the main thing that I would really like to say to you today is I know that this is different. However, we want to stay connected, and that's why we decided when we wanted to go quarterly to keep connected with our community conversations. And then each time after our community conversations for us to be able to have questions, and then we will have a survey that Sarah will talk to us about in just a moment. And what we want to find out from you folks is what we learned today. You know, how is that going to help you personally and in your community? Because our coalition, what we are is we are a group of people that are coming together as partners to share information, and that includes our community members as well as those who are serving our community. And one of the questions was asked to me a while back that really made me do some thinking is why do we have Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities? How is it different from the other coalitions? And I really started doing some research on that and looked at some of our statewide coalitions and their missions and what is going on with them. And I found that every one of them has very distinct purposes, values, but I didn't see a one that it looked to me like they were integrating with each other, becoming fully integrated to try and find out and then to equip and empower us as a group to help our communities become healthier. And that's what we want to do. So that's one of the reasons we bring programs like this to you, so you can learn not only on a personal basis, if you have someone in your home or even a loved one at an assisted living, how you may assist, but then for our stakeholders to be able to look at it as a whole program. We want to be the doers. We want to be the ones that are not just talking about healthcare and how to be healthier, but out in the community and helping folks become healthier. And we do that a variety of ways. One of our new programs that we are implementing here, and we just did a training and have 14 new facilitators, is called the Microclinics program. And that is an international program, and we are able to go out into our communities and we ask folks to come as teams to these classes, whether it be your families, whether it be your coworkers, your good friends, so that you can encourage each other to better health. We've been doing a walk on a yearly basis now. This is our 7th year. We actually started it way back when we was doing the Diabetes Coalition. And again, this is a way to just help our community become aware of how important activity is to overall health. And it's a fun thing. It helps improve community pride. It's a challenge walk, and we have 7 of our counties in our area who will be walking. And what happens is it's not who's got first place, who's got second place, who can walk the fastest, who, that kind of stuff. But we take the collective steps of each county, and then the county who has stepped the most that day actually will win the traveling trophy. And we make that a big deal. It's fun. And we have 3 and 4 generations walking together. So that's one of the things that we're doing. And we're going to be continuing to do more. We like to work with the health departments, the community action, our local health coalitions, and say, how can we become a group of folks who really can help our communities become healthier. And we use microclinics saying very often that health is contagious. And when each of us is willing to model that, then we're going to see all of our communities getting healthier. And that's what the Kentucky Coalition for Healthy Communities is all about. And we certainly want to invite everyone to become a part of us. You do not have to be a professional worker. In fact, we love our community members because we want our community members to help us see what the needs are in our communities, not us coming in and telling you what your needs are. So you want to talk to them a little bit about the survey, Sarah?
Yeah, so in the chat, you might see I just added a Google form to fill out, just going over your experience today and a survey about what kind of device you're using and what counties you're serving in, as well as it might ask you a little bit if you're attending as a community member or in a professional capacity. So if we do have a list of names of people who have made it to this community conversation. So if you don't fill it out, we'll also be emailing it out to you. But please, by all means, check it out. Take a look at it. It's a really fast, easy survey to fill out.
Okay, and I would just like to ask that each person that has attended to please tell other people about this, how great it was, and that within a few days we will have this recording on our webpage. So encourage people to watch that. Does anyone have any last comment or question?
Yes, this is Barbara.
Yes.
Can you say again where the survey can be found?
It is in the chat, and I will also email it out as soon as this ends.
Did you find it, Barbara? We'll get it emailed to you.
I had it in the chat. So
I found it. I found it. Thanks.
If the chat isn't showing up for you, if you hover at the bottom screen, a toolbar will show up and you'll see a number of different options, including chat.
Anyone else have any comments? Well, we thank you very much for attending our first Zoom meeting, and I hope that the rest of your day is wonderful. So long.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Sandy.
Yeah, thank you. Meeting.